Chapter 56 to 62. One's subconscious actions are a product of their belief and self. This is Kuroto's firm belief. Uchiha Hiragi's aura is a reflection of his pride in his kenjutsu skills and his trust in his blade. The same pride and trust are what makes him want to take risks while in combat. He may have never even noticed this, however, Shisui was well aware of this habit. And small details such as this are sometimes the key to victory. After the first clash with Hiragi, Kuroto took the initiative to retreat with the intention to fight him using the terrain of the small forest. Swish, swish, swish. Another thick tree was cut off by Hiragi's sword. Counting this one, there have already been more than 10 big trees that have been brutally attacked by him. Along with the smoke and dust that rose from the falling of the tree, Kuroto successfully dodged another one of Hiragi's attacks. Frustrated by Kuroto's continuous dodging, Hiragi shouted in anger, "Coward! Do you only know how to escape?" Kuroto calmly replied, "Do you only know how to cut trees? Why, you little..." Hiragi was speechless at Kuroto's retort. Seeing Hiragi going silent, Kuroto didn't continue to ridicule him but concentrated on coping with Hiragi's ferocious attacks. In Kuroto's understanding, Hiragi is indeed an elite of the Uchiha. Even without the use of genjutsu and ninjutsu, his strength is definitely a jonin class, with kenjutsu alone combining with the dynamic vision of the Sharingan. Honestly, Kuroto doesn't really have an effective method to win against Hiragi without using Kazekage Puppet or using Rain Will interaction. If not for the information that Shisui sent him beforehand, he isn't even sure whether he can compete against Hiragi. So, Kuroto's tactics are quite simple for this battle, and that is dragging it out as much as possible. As the duration of the battle will continue to increase, Hiragi will start getting impatient and reckless. Similar to most Uchiha, Hiragi is also not a very patient person, as such his mood started to get worsened and unstable because of Kuroto's continuous dodging. As a result of which, Hiragi's movements started getting flawed, and these flaws allowed Kuroto to fight back. But Kuroto was in no hurry. He firmly believes in the information Shisui sent him, but he believes in his eyes even more. There was another game of chase, the two, one attacking while the other dodging, left behind the already messy practice range, and arrived at the calm lake nearby. The villagers washing clothes by the lake were surprised and shouted in a panic. Standing on the lake, Kuroto said while struggling to catch his breath, it seems you are better than the last guy." Hiragi shouted in anger, "You bastard who only knows how to hide isn't qualified to judge the Uchiha." Cough cough. Hiragi coughed violently. As Shisui described, Hiragi's low physical strength is his weakness, and the high-intensity battle just now was burdensome for him, coupled with the fact that his impatience is only making the physical exertion on him greater due to madly chasing after Kuroto. Seeing that the time was ripe, Kuroto said with a mocking smile, "Hide? I am again surprised at your shallowness." This time Kuroto took the initiative to attack without waiting for Hiragi's reply. As Kuroto took the initiative, Hiragi raised his guard and immediately slashed his sword at the incoming Kuroto. The calm lake was stirred by the momentum of the two, resulting in high rising waves all around as they fiercely fought against one another. In the concentrated state of battle, this time Kuroto could feel that Hiragi's moves were getting messier by the second. The errors in his moves were continuously increasing, although the killing intent in his every move was as fierce as ever. However, just having fierce killing intent isn't enough to kill people. Opportunity. 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 In his field of perception, Kuroto continuously discovered Hiragi's flaw. But Kuroto was still not in a hurry. He has to be patient. He wasn't just looking for the chance to defeat Hiragi, but in fact, for an opening to take away Hiragi's short sword. Kuroto's objective is to completely crush Uchiha Hiragi's confidence, and only by breaking his pride would Hiragi accept defeat. So, the game of chasing continued, until not long after, an opportunity appeared. Without any hesitation to let the chance pass by, Kuroto immediately locked his palms into a fist and went for a strike at Hiragi's chest, and just according to his expectation, rather than choosing to back away, Hiragi chooses to recklessly attack him, with an up-to-down vertical sword slash. Seeing Hiragi's slow-moving action with Tensigen, Kuroto smiled sinisterly. Sure enough, he likes to take unnecessary risks. Suddenly, the fist about to strike changed the direction of its momentum and hit the opponent's wrist holding the sword, loosening the grip, while his other hand took away the sword. The entire process happened in milliseconds. After grabbing the short sword, Kuroto immediately backed away, leaving the stunned Hiragi who was looking at his hands in a daze. Kuroto was really impressed by the sword in his hands and faintly said, "It is indeed a fine sword, it's a pity that its master isn't good enough to showcase its true abilities." However, before Hiragi could retort, Kuroto threw back the sword while saying, "You lost." The stunned Hiragi couldn't deny Kuroto's words and left the lake in a fit of rage. Not long after, Shisui appeared next to Kuroto and asked calmly, "How did it go, Kuroto-san?" Because Uchiha Hiragi's strength is very high, Shisui wasn't confident enough to trail the other party without being noticed, so he couldn't watch the entire battle like last time with Uchiha Shinichi. Kuroro nodded. Fortunately it went well, but I have to say that Uchiha Hiragi is very strong. If not for the fact that he agreed on a pure taijutsu battle, the result might have been a little different. Although Kuroto looked calm and indifferent during the entire battle as if he didn't put Uchiha Hiragi much in his eyes, in fact, without using the Kazekage puppet and rain will interaction, this is his limit. If Hiragi hadn't agreed on a taijutsu battle, then the result would have been the opposite. Shisui smiled and selectively ignored Kuroto's last words. It's inconvenient to use some techniques in the village. If the next opponent is stronger than him, I am afraid I wouldn't be able to win. This is completely true. Although Kuroto did manage to win, it was only because the opponent agreed to the style of combat that's Kuroto's strong suite. If the Uchiha sent a stronger Jonin, then he isn't sure if he can win. Listening to Kuroto's words again, Shisui hurriedly promised, "Please don't worry, Kuroto-san, I am sure the elders wouldn't send anyone for some time because of Hiragi's defeat." The reason Kuroto accepted Shisui's request to accept Uchiha's challenge in the first place is to increase his combat experience and also increase his personal reputation. Although the Uchiha are isolated and suppressed, their reputation is still the highest. Konoha shinobi may not speak this openly, but they subconsciously revere the Uchiha as the elites. Using the Uchiha as his stepping stone can be regarded as the most efficient and safest way to become famous and get on the good side of the Hokage clan. With the successive defeat of Shisui, Shinichi, and Hiragi, the information that was initially limited to the Uchiha was now talk of the village. Once the news of Uchiha's successive failures spread, other ninjas also joined the discussion. At night, after finishing with the dishes, you asked Kuroto with a little hesitation, "Kuroto-kun, are the rumor going around true?" Kuroto, who was still busy thinking about compounding poison, absent-mindedly asked, "What rumors?" You asked anxiously, "About you and the Uchiha." "Oh, that's what you are asking?" With a slight smile, Kuroto nodded. "Well, the Uchiha clan did send someone to challenge me, but I defeated them." However, contrary to what Kuroto expected, you didn't seem impressed but said with a more worried look, "Nothing good will come in angering the Uchiha, let's not provoke them, okay?" Kuroto was taken aback by Yu's words and looked at her strangely. Seeing the strange look she was getting, you asked carefully, "Did I say something wrong?" Kuroto shook his head and reassured you with a little petting. However, he was indeed surprised just now. He really didn't expect that even you, being a member of the Hyuga clan, another one of the major clans of Konoha, would be so afraid of the Uchiha. This shows what kind of attitude ordinary ninjas have towards the Uchiha. It wouldn't be wrong to say that the Uchiha have been completely separated even from the hearts of villagers. And thinking of this, Kuroto couldn't help but feel a little gloomy. For Kuroto, the Uchiha aren't just a stepping stone to increase his fame, but also a magnet to attract all sorts of attention. As long as there is the Uchiha clan, whether the Hokage-sama, Shimura Danzo, or Obito hidden behind the scenes will have their attention directed towards the Uchiha clan. But once the Uchiha clan is gone, God knows who will become the target of their attention. Therefore, for his own benefit, Kuroto can't allow the Uchiha clan to disappear, at least not before his personal strength reaches the level of a Kage. What's more, Kuroto has also been thinking about the artifacts Sword of Tatsuka and Yata Mirror. Orochimaru, whose strength is probably on the same level as a tailed beast while using the 8 branches technique, was so easily sealed by Itachi, using Sword of Tatsuka. During the entire confrontation, Orochimaru couldn't even fight back and was suppressed so easily and neatly. Therefore, Kuroto has a very high impression of these two artifacts. He has two speculations about these two artifacts. According to the first, the two artifacts, Sword of Tatsuka and Yata Mirror, are just unique abilities of Itachi Susanoo. If this is the case, then they would be part of Itachi's chakra and can't exist separate from him. In the second case, these are spiritual artifacts in a chakra state. Because of this, he can use both of them while using Susanoo. And according to Kuroto's guess, the second possibility is more likely to be correct, because when Itachi used Sword of Tatsuka and Yata Mirror, both Orochimaru and Zetsu not only clearly recognized the artifacts but were also aware of some of their abilities. Based on this information alone, it can be judged that the two artifacts have existed in the shinobi world since long ago. Otherwise, it would be impossible for both Orochimaru and Zetsu to know the details of these artifacts even when Itachi used them for the first time. It simply doesn't make sense. Of course, before the official appearance of these two artifacts, all these are just Kuroto's speculations. As for where these artifacts may be hidden, Kuroto has considered it a lot, but his conclusion is that whether the first possibility is correct or the second, the task of finding both the artifacts should be left into Itachi's hands. Because the fact that even Orochimaru with such a deep understanding of shinobi world, and even after searching for so many years has not been able to find them just goes to show that they are hidden in some special place. Kuroto even suspects that the clues about their whereabouts might be hidden somewhere within the Uchiha clan, and Itachi might have found those clues after exterminating the entire clan. However, Itachi is still too young, so Kuroto can only put aside this thought for a while. After all, it's not like anyone would be able to get their hands on the two artifacts for the next decade, and Kuroto's immediate priority is the artificial tailed beast plan. As long as he has enough chakra support, Kuroto can not only further explore the superior abilities of the Tenseigan but also confidently and boldly learn a variety of other, secret techniques and kinjutsu. The next day, Kuroto came to the Death Forest as usual. After a series of regular failures, the 18th trial sample of the paralytic poison he prepared finally showed some results. As soon as the baby boar ate the meat piece containing the poison, it started showing signs of weariness, and after struggling a few times, it fell on the ground. However, the baby boar was back to normal in just about 5 to 6 minutes, which greatly annoyed Kuroto, but he was still satisfied with this result. As in a battle between shinobi, not to mention 5 to 6 minutes, even 1 to 2 seconds is more than enough to decide life and death. Just a momentary flaw could be fatal. Therefore, he was satisfied and smiled slightly seeing the success. Previously he has been using the powder of crushed wings of tussock moths. Although they have a large number, their toxicity is less, so he decided to use the tussock moth king for the 18th sample. Their numbers are less, they have a high toxicity. And reduced the proportion of giant red ant's venom because it was acting as an inhibitor for the toxicity. By making these two changes and adjusting the compounding process accordingly, although the activity of the resultant poison decreased from 3 days to 1 day, its toxicity has increased. And the poisoning effect of a poison is what's more important for him. Content with the results. Just as he was beginning to record the data of his experiments while thinking about how to further improve the poison and how to prepare an antidote, a figure appeared on the big tree in front of him. Hyuga Kuroto. Hokage-sama has summoned you urgently. Even before Kuroto could nod, after leaving such a sentence the Umbu ninja left in a hurry. It seems he still has the task of informing other shinobi of the urgent summon from Hokage-sama. Kuroto put away the notebook with a thoughtful look. The half-month vacation isn't over yet, so how come Hokage-sama has summoned? Is it because Rock Village has started taking some actions? The reason why Kuroto was developing the poisons for the past few days is that he was worried that the Rock Village would attack Konoha under the pretext of destroying their beheading unit. Konoha has lost Yondaime-sama, second-generation Kyuubi's Jinchuriki, and Orochimaru, so it no longer has the same deterrence effect of the Third Shinobi World War, therefore it wouldn't be strange for Rock Village to try to utilize this opportunity. In this scenario, even if there is no war, small-scale conflicts are inevitable, and as a member of the Umbu Black Ops directly under Hokage-sama, Kuroto has to participate in the frontline battle, so there is a serious urgency for him to improve his strength as soon as possible. As soon as he arrived at Hokage office, Kuroto found that the place was filled with ninjas. On a rough count, there were more than 100 shinobi of the upper Chunin to elite Jonin class. The fact that Hokage-sama summoned so many elites indicate that the seriousness of the situation is beyond doubt. Kuroto thought silently as he walked over to the place where Class 11 was. Guy greeted in his usual cheerful manner and asked, "How come so late? We have been waiting for you to come for quite some time." Kuroto didn't explain that he came from the Forest of Death, and instead asked, "Is there any information why Hokage-sama called for an emergency summon?" However, no one seems to be aware of the reason and shook their head negatively. No one is clear about the exact reason for the emergency summon. At this time Shisui suddenly spoke. Could it be related to Rock Village? Most likely, was Kakashi's reply. The battle between Konoha's Class 11 and Rock's beheading troops in the Land of Bear gives Rock Village a perfect excuse to cause trouble to the weakened Konoha, therefore all the 4 shinobi of Class 11 have been psychologically prepared for the upcoming battles. Because of the issued password, Class 11 didn't discuss this topic anymore but diverted towards some casual chat. Not long after, Hokage-sama, Mitokade Hamura, and Utatane Koharu of the Konoha Council along with Inoshikocho clan heads, and Hyuga Hizashi of the Hyuga clan appeared, one after another. With Hokage-sama's arrival, the venue immediately became quiet as everyone could judge that matter was serious from the solemn expression on his face. Hokage-sama took a step forward and announced to the ninjas present, "We have received news from the border about 2 hours ago. According to the news, a raid party of the Cloud Village has breached the border of Land of Fire about 3 days ago." Suddenly hearing such shocking news, the quiet meeting place suddenly became extremely noisy. The news about Cloud Village's sudden raid reminded everyone present here of the Third Shinobi War that ended not long ago. And everyone couldn't help but shudder thinking of that terrible war. There are too many painful memories attached to it, no one present here wants to experience such a thing again. However, Class 11 was more surprised than shocked. Guy muttered, "Shouldn't it be Rock Village? How come Hokage-sama mentioned Cloud Village?" Kakashi also frowned, "This is really not good." Shisui also whispered, "It shouldn't be the case that Cloud Village and Rock Village join forces, right? If that happens," he didn't finish his words, nor was there any need to finish, because everyone knows that if such a thing really happened, it would get close to impossible for Konoha to resist the joint attack, and in that case, Konoha might even cease to exist. However, Kuroto shook his head negatively, "Things won't get so bad. Remember, the third Raikage died in the hands of Rock Shinobi. So how could Cloud Village agree to form an alliance with Rock Village? Not to mention, even if they did, Rock Village wouldn't trust Cloud Village. So even if Rock Village did have some plans of attacking Konoha, Tsuchikage would opt to watch Konoha and Cloud fight while waiting for a suitable opportunity to strike a hard blow to both the villages at the same time." This isn't just Kuroto's speculation, but because he was reminded of the information that even in the original series, Konoha and Cloud did have some small-scale conflict after the Third Shinobi War. Later, when the representatives of Cloud Village came to Konoha to sign a peace agreement, the head ninja responsible for the mission died at the hands of Hyuga Hayashi. It was also this incident that led to the sacrifice of Hyuga Hizashi. Therefore, Kuroto thinks that even if the conflict against the Cloud may not be on a small scale, it shouldn't develop to the level of an actual war involving several villages. After hearing Kuroto's analysis, everyone of Class 11 thought about it and found it reasonable, which greatly relieved them. Hokage-sama standing on the stage raised his hand to calm down the discussion on the field, and then said with a solemn expression, "Based on the current information, the commander leading Cloud Village's charge is Hachibi's Jinchuriki, Killer Bee along with 3 head ninjas as well as Nibi's Jinchuriki Yujito Ni is part of the raiding unit." Hearing that Cloud Village had sent both of their human column force at the same time, Konoha shinobi at the field were both indignant and worried. Seeing that everyone was a little demoralized, Hokage-sama ordered in an indisputable tone, "You all present here will form an advanced team responsible for preventing Cloud Village's invasion." "Yes." Konoha shinobi seemed to have recovered some confidence from Hokage-sama's majestic voice and bowed their head respectfully. With the return of morale and confidence in his shinobi, Hokage-sama nodded and continued, "Until Jiraiya's arrival, Nara Shikaku will temporarily serve as the commander while Hyuga Hizashi will be the deputy commander of the advanced team." Both Nara Shikaku and Hyuga Hizashi immediately appeared and accepted the appointment of Hokage-sama. Finally, after one last glance at everyone, Hokage-sama said, "Umbu stays, rest will go back and prepare to depart." "Yes." Whoosh, whoosh, whoosh. With Hokage-sama's orders, the group of shinobi left the venue one after another with quick body flicker. Now there were only Hokage-sama and 2 elders of the Konoha Council, as well as 16 Umbu ninjas, including the Class 11 that Kuroto was part of. At this time, Hokage-sama took 4 scrolls from the hands of Mikado Hamura and handed one of them to each captain, with the order, "Your tasks are all recorded in the scrolls. This time the safety of Konoha is at stake, you must put all your effort." The 16 Umbu kneeling in front of Hokage-sama replied in a unison, "Please rest assured Hokage-sama, we will definitely complete the task." Sandim-sama nodded, "Class 11 stays back, rest leave for the preparation." With a quick bow again 12 Umbu disappeared with a quick body flicker. Whoosh, whoosh, whoosh. Now with only Class 11 left, Hokage-sama led them to the Hokage office. After lighting up the tobacco pipe, Sandim-sama slowly said, "According to the regulations, it is only allowed to apply for advanced jutsu after serving for 1 year in the department. However, this time considering that the difficulty of the task is very high, I am giving special authorization for you all to apply to learn an advanced type of jutsu." The authorization here only applies to Kuroto, Guy, and Shisui. As for the captain of a Class 11 Kakashi, he is already an old man in the Umbu Black Ops, so Hokage-sama's words were not for him. Kuroto didn't expect such benefits to appear, so after pondering for a while, he asked, "Hokage-sama, what rank of jutsu can we apply for?" While playing with the tobacco pipe he replied, "Some rank A and most of the rank B jutsu are allowed." After Kuroto heard Hokage-sama's words, he fell into thinking again. At the border of Land of Fire and Land of Rain, a Konoha messaging eagle swept across a valley as it flew towards the hinterland of the Land of Rain. The messaging eagle is specially trained by Konoha, a creature of the sky, not only capable of long flights but also fearless of most of the creatures, with close to zero natural enemies. Konoha's last resort for emergency transmission of information. The same eagle was now passing through this border when suddenly a shuriken was shot out of nowhere, and it accurately hit the messaging eagle in its high-speed flight. Bang! The messaging eagle suddenly fell from the sky on a high mountain cliff. At this time, the air around the high cliff where the eagle fell distorted into a vortex, and a mysterious man wearing a one-eyed spiral pattern mask walked out of it. The mysterious man leisurely picked up the dead message eagle, untied the small scroll on its leg, opened it to take a look, and suddenly spoke while laughing madly, "Too bad Hokage, it seems Jiraiya couldn't receive the emergency news." And with just a small fire release he burned both the eagle and the scroll and disappeared mysteriously, leaving no trace of his existence. If Kuroto has to choose between Rank A and Rank B jutsu, then he thinks that Rank B Shadow Clone Jutsu and Rank A Multi-Shadow Clone Jutsu would be most useful for him. For a ninja specializing in taijutsu, the Shadow Clone Jutsu can instantly double the combat power, and if used properly it can often have a miraculous effect in the battles. And according to his guess, there must be a collection of Shadow Clone and Multi-Shadow Clone Jutsu in the libraries of the Hyuga clan. Therefore, Kuroto had actually planned to ask for the favor of Hyuga Hizashi in learning these jutsu after providing the vote of confidence for the member of the main branch in the Jonin assessment. However, he never thought that his plan could not keep up with the sudden changes, and now it was already too late to make a request from the Hyuga clan. Despite this, he still didn't want to use the opportunity that Hokage-sama has provided to learn Shadow Clone Jutsu. This time the opportunity is too rare. It can be said that this is the best chance for him to get into touch with Fuinjutsu openly. As for learning Shadow Clone Jutsu, asking Shirsue's help on this matter would be most reasonable. Shirsue owes him a favor for helping out with the matter of the Uchiha clan, so passing a mere rank B Shadow Clone Jutsu shouldn't be big deal, right? After making up his mind, Kuroto said in a deep voice, "Hokage-sama, I hope to learn advanced Fuinjutsu." Hokage-sama frowned hearing Kuroto's request, Fuinjutsu. The practice of Fuinjutsu has extremely high requirements. If someone doesn't specialize in Fuinjutsu from childhood, then they often need to reach the level of an elite jonin to successfully start learning it. Fuinjutsu not only has high restrictions on the chakra volume of the practitioner but also chakra controlling ability. Some parts of Fuinjutsu even requires a ninja's mental strength to be very high or having some sort of Kekkei Genkai. In simple terms, practicing Fuinjutsu has a really high threshold. This is one of the reasons why Fuinjutsu masters are regarded highly. So, after hesitating a little at Hyuga Kuroto's request, he finally nodded. After all, it is up to the person himself to choose what jutsu she wants to learn, and even as the Hokage, he doesn't have much reason to interfere in the personal interest of his subordinates as long as it is not harmful to the village. So, after conforming to Kuroto's request, Hokage-sama turned to look at Might Guy and Uchiha Shirsue. Guy gave up the opportunity to learn advanced jutsu without hesitation on the grounds of concentrating on taijutsu-style combat. Sandim-sama nodded approvingly to Guy. Precisely because Guy's entire focus is on taijutsu mastery, he becomes Konoha's blue beast of prey, and one of the few ninjas who can threaten Uchiha Madara in the Fourth Shinobi World War. Shirsue, being a member of the Uchiha, has no shortage of Rank A and Rank B jutsu either, so initially, he also thought of giving up this opportunity to learn any advanced jutsu. However, Kuroto has chosen to learn, and if both he and Guy gave up, it would be a little embarrassing for Kuroto, so he randomly opted for a Rank B fire release ninjutsu. With all this decided, Kuroto and Shirsue followed Hokage-sama to the confidential database located under the Hokage office. On the way to the confidential database, Kuroto observed every detail with the Tensigen. There are Umbu guards at the corners leading to the basement on the first floor. 2 members on each spot, a total of 4 people. Judging from their chakra volume, they should be Chunin class. There are sealing technique engraved here, 1, 2, 3, 5 in total. These seals should be induction type. If the person entering doesn't have Hokage-sama's chakra signature, or whatever is used for identification, these seals should activate. There are more seal techniques engraved on each stair step, they kind of look strange, not like the Uzumaki sealing techniques. Kuroto was observing and analyzing all the possibilities of sneaking in. The overall security of the Hokage building isn't as strict as one would expect. This may also be due to a shortage of manpower in the village. Leaving aside the working staff in the Hokage building, there are probably a dozen Chunin guards on the Bright, while there are only 4 Umbu squads and Hokage-sama's personal guards protecting the Hokage building from the shadows. Although the number of guards is small, with Sandim-sama himself present here, there probably is no need for many individuals. After all, if someone could bypass Hokage-sama himself, then no matter how many guards there are, they would all be pretty useless. Moving along the stairs, the three arrived at a door under the leadership of Hokage-sama. At this time, Sandim-sama quickly made a few hand seals and then pressed one hand on the door. Click. With a clicking sound, the door slowly opened. Come in. Giving this instruction, Sandim-sama took the lead in entering the confidential database room. As soon as he entered the confidential database room, he couldn't help but sigh. The underground database is so much larger than I expected. It goes to show just how much secret information, knowledge, and jutsu are hidden here. Calming his emotions, Kuroto observed Sandim-sama skillfully shuttle through the rows of bookshelves, and quickly took out 2 scrolls that he passed to Kuroto and Shisui each. Shisui randomly selected a rank B fire release ninjutsu that he didn't know from the scroll and silently stood on the side. While Kuroto carefully observed the seal techniques recorded in the scroll. There are many seal techniques he could choose from, including the 5-element seal, 4-symbol seals, 8-trigram seal, contract seals, and so on. After much deliberation, comparison, and repeated observation, Kuroto found that among these sealing techniques 4-symbol seal was the best for him for now, so after a little more consideration, he opted for 4-symbol seal. Sandim-sama nodded slightly, and then put away the introduction scrolls. Then from the bookshelves on the front, he selected a scroll that separately records the 4-symbol seal along with a scroll of the rank B fire release ninjutsu selected by Shisui and passed them to Kuroto and Shisui respectively. Sandim-sama also reminded, the jutsu you are learning while in the Umbu cannot be passed out to others, both of you should be aware of this. Kuroto and Shisui both nodded, of course, they are aware of such rules. Additionally, turn in the jutsu scroll within 1 month. While you are on official missions, this time will be postponed, and if you encounter an accident, make sure to destroy the scroll and never leak it. Yes. With Hokage-sama's nod, both Kuroto and Shisui left the Hokage building. As soon as they came out, Kuroto talked about the shadow clone jutsu with Shisui. However, Shichizui was stunned and looked strangely at Kuroto. And, why wouldn't he be stunned? From Shisui's perspective, with Kuroto-san's strength, being able to kill the elite Jonin of Rock Village as well as the fight and suppress the demon Morio, shadow clone jutsu should have been mastered long ago. Anyone with a little bit of brain and necessary chakra level will at least master it, even if they don't use it much. Even Kuroto was feeling a little embarrassed about it. Obviously, he can't tell Shisui that he was just a cannon fodder class ninja until a few months ago. Where can he learn such important jutsu? All he could do was to come up with some excuse to hide this embarrassment. Listening to Kuroto-san's explanation, Shisui didn't think much about it, and immediately explained the principle of shadow clone jutsu while also demonstrating the hand sign printing method, as well as chakra running method for the shadow clone jutsu. Kuroto observed the entire process with the Tensigen very carefully. And after only a few attempts, he was able to roughly master the shadow clone jutsu. After all, with his current chakra volume, mastering a rank B jutsu is not so difficult. What's more, with the insight of the Tensigen, he can clearly observe the flow of chakra in Shisui's chakra pathway. Anyone with a little intelligence can master such techniques using the same method. This is the advantage of having a Dojutsu Kekai Genkai. Even Kakashi was able to copy so many jutsu, earning him the title of Copy Ninja Kakashi. This is not only because of his talent but also because of the Sharingan that Obito passed on to him. After this short episode, both Kuroto and Shisui went to their respective home to prepare for the secret mission. Considering that this time, the mission will be amid fierce conflicts close to the level of a small-scale war against the Cloud Village, Kuroto didn't dare to be careless. Shuriken, kunai, senbon, etc. he made sure to take them in an appropriate amount. Along with more than 500 detonation seals. Paralytic poison, antidotes, medical bandages, military ration pills, etc. were all orderly prepared. After doing all the packing and preparation, when Kuroto was about to go out, the ninja pouches around his waist were already bulging. As soon as he stepped out of his door, he collided with the anxious Yu. Helping her stabilize herself, Kuroto said with a gentle smile, why are you being so anxious? While catching her breath, you looked at Kuroto-kun, who was already ready to go to the battlefield. While bending her head down, she murmured, you must be careful, Kuroto-kun. There were thousands of words in her heart that she wanted to speak, but right now all she could muster to ask him was to be careful while on the battlefield. Although you spoke in a very light voice, Kuroto heard it more clearly than he could have ever. Seeing her anxiousness and worry, Kuroto reached out his hand to hold her right cheek. Lifting her head to match with his eyesight, he reassured her with a confident smile. I am a special Jonin now. It isn't me who has to be careful but the enemy ninjas. Feeling Kuroto-kun's confidence, you felt a little relieved. Then, as if she suddenly remembered something, she took out a sword and handed it to Kuroto. Here, Kuroto-kun. Clan head asked me to give it to you. Kuroto took the sword from Yu's hand and looked at the beautiful carving around the hilt. Unsheathing sound. As he drew it out of the sheath, a beautiful silver blade came out. Even the warm sunlight of the day couldn't dispel the cold air lingering around it. One could feel its sharpness with just a glance. Highly impressed by the short sword in his hands, Kuroto couldn't help but mutter, good sword. Seeing Kuroto-kun busy admiring the sword, you decided to explain, it's a Chikuto, capable of channeling chakra, and Hayashi-sama said that it's a Kusanagi sword. It also has a special ability according to which if an enemy is injured by it, then it would prevent the healing of that wound. Sword of Kusanagi. Kuroto was a little startled by this information and thought silently, could this really be one of those many Kusanagi no Tsurugi? Of course, Kuroto was extremely surprised by the sudden gift from clan head, not to mention one of the Kusanagi. But after thinking about it a little, this sudden gift may not be so unexpected, considering that now he isn't just some cannon fodder that he used to be. As a member of the Umbu Black Ops, serving directly under Hokage-sama, Kuroto also has some authority. He can participate in the internal and external affairs of the village. Adding the fact that he defeated Shisui, Shinichi, and Hiragi not long ago, which made his reputation increase several times, makes him undoubtedly the most outstanding of all the Hyugas around his age. It is completely natural for the clan head to get on his good side. If Hayashi-sama doesn't even do this much, then what sort of clan head would he be? Hyuga Hayashi should be more than clear about the true picture of the Hyuga clan. Although there are many Chunin in the clan, the number of Jonin is not so much. And in the younger generation, apart from the sudden appearance of Kuroto, there is only you with the potential to reach Jonin class or probably higher. This is also one of the reasons why the Hyugas have always preferred to stay low-key. They simply don't have enough strength like the Uchiha. It's just that even if it is natural for the clan head to do something like this, Kuroto never expected that Hayashi-sama would give such a valuable treasure. This made him sigh with lots of emotion. Undoubtedly the background and history of a millennia will have an inheritance such as this. Kuroto doesn't know much about this Kusanagi sword. Even in the original series, only 3 Kusanagi swords were shown. But does that mean there are only 3 of them? This is an answer he might never be able to find out. Who knows how many of such swords have been buried in the long river of history? Therefore, Kuroto decided to ignore all these issues, and be content with the gift he received. After bidding a farewell to you, with some petting and a hug, and finally an Itachi-style flick on her forehead, Kuroto rushed to the meeting point of Class 11. Both Shisui and Guy were already waiting, but there was no sign of Kakashi. So, after a short greeting with the two, while waiting for Kakashi to come, Kuroto had some discussion with Shisui about his new sword. After waiting for a long time, Kakashi finally arrived. Guy asked curiously, Kakashi, my rival. What took you so long? Kakashi said with an apologetic expression, I just went to the memorial stone, so it took a little while. Hearing this, Kuroto suddenly wrinkled his brows. Kakashi actually went to the memorial stone before performing this secret mission? Why do I have a bad feeling about this? It seems that the secret mission handed by Sandim-sama is not so simple. Kuroto thought silently. However, he can only try doing his best, since it was almost time for departing, so everyone stopped chatting and immediately set off. While traveling, Kuroto decided to ask Kakashi, what is the task of Class 11? Shisui and Guy also looked towards Kakashi once they heard Kuroto's question. The task scroll handed by Hokage-sama is kept by the captain of the quad, so currently, only Kakashi knows the specific information of the secret mission handed over to Class 11. In response to Kuroto's question and seeing the curious look of Shisui and Guy, Kakashi only shook his head negatively while saying, I can't speak yet. To prevent the outflow of intelligence, mostly the squad leader only informs the details of the task to other members of the team after arriving at or near the mission location. Because Kuroto knows this, so Kakashi's denial only increased his worry. He can feel that this mission is definitely not going to be easy, and maybe it has nothing to do with blocking the Cloud Village raid party, because if it was just blocking the invasion of the enemy forces, there was no need to keep it a secret. Well, looks like I can't rest assured, huh? In the following week, Class 11 detoured all the way, avoiding the Cloud Village troops invading the Land of Fire, passing through the Land of Hot Springs, and finally approached the border of the Land of Lightning. By now, every one of the class has figured out that this secret mission will be carried out in the enemy territory. Captain Kakashi no longer concealed the details of the mission. Spreading a map on the ground, he pointed at a red dot, while explaining, "Remember it, this is the location where we have to carry out the mission." The red dot on the map is located at the border of Land of Lightning and Land of Frost. Carefully looking at the topography on the map, the target location is on a valley, and the surrounding geography is hard to tread. Kakashi continued, "According to the intelligence, a secret warehouse storing a large number of tools and ration supply of Cloud Village is located here. Once this warehouse is successfully destroyed, Cloud's offensive in the Land of Fire will be forced to slow down." Listening to the objective of the mission, Shisui immediately asked, "What about the security from the enemy side?" Kakashi shook his head at Shisui's question. The intelligence team could only detect the location, the number of enemy guards and security are unknown, so before heading out, we have to be prepared for the worst. It would not be surprising to find more than 100 shinobi guarding such a large warehouse. On the other hand, Class 11 only has 4 people. Although nobody here is weak, with being so heavily outnumbered, no matter how you look at it, the chance of successfully completing this mission is very low. After all, even the third Raikage died by being outnumbered. After hearing all the details of the task, Kuroto couldn't help but slander. No wonder Sandim-sama were suddenly so generous. There is one more information you all should know. Shinobi army of the Rock Village has already been assembled at the border of the Land of Grass. Therefore, we must end the conflict with the Cloud Village as soon as possible. Otherwise, Konoha's situation would become similar to the time of the Third Shinobi War. Kakashi gave another message. The conflict between the 5 great shinobi villages has never been isolated. When Cloud Village launched a surprise attack on Konoha, Rock Village has already received the news and would naturally respond accordingly. As the news spread further, perhaps even the Sand Village and Mist Village will also make their responses, but these issues are not what Team 11 can consider right now. While Kuroto was busy with his thoughts, Shisui asked seriously, "In other words, we can't afford to fail the mission?" Kakashi nodded. "We don't have an option of failure, because if we fail, Konoha would fall into an extremely disadvantaged situation like that of the Third Shinobi War. No, in fact, even worse situation than that." However, Guy didn't have the slightest fear or depression, and said, "So what are we doing here standing around? Let's go already." Kakashi put away the map and ordered calmly, "I will complete the final assault. The 3 of you are only responsible for providing me with cover by distracting the enemy forces." "That's an order." Listening to Kakashi's serious order, both Kuroto and Shisui nodded, although Guy wanted to object a little, but seeing Kakashi's determination he decided to stay silent and nodded firmly. On the battlefield in the Land of Fire. In the semi-liberated state, Killer Bee easily blocked the Inoshikacho formation attack while sweeping away Choza Akimichi aside with one of Hachibi's tails. Immediately afterward, Killer Bee rapped in his unique tone, "Yeah, why did Konoha send only you people?" Nara Shikaku and Yamanaka Inoichi looked helpless when he heard this. In their eyes, Killer Bee, who can perfectly cooperate with the Hachibi, is a monster through and through. They could barely even resist him with Inoshikacho joint techniques. Glancing around the battlefield from the corner of his eyes, all Nara Shikaku could see was the passive situation of Konoha. Feeling anxious, he couldn't help but think, how come Lord Jiraiya hasn't arrived yet? Such monsters are not what we can resist. Not far away, Hyuga Hizashi panted heavily as he stared at the black-haired Cloud Shinobi in front of him. The opponent is no one other than the deputy commander of the Cloud Invasion Force. A Black Lightning Kekai Genkai user. Before Hizashi arrived here, 2 teams of Konoha ninjas had already been buried in his hands. If not for Hizashi trying to block the enemy, the nearby Konoha ninjas would hardly be spared. The enemy grinned mockingly, "You are weak." Hizashi didn't bother refuting but silently pondered about the countermeasure. Black Lightning is a combination of lightning release and water release. It not only has the destructive power of lightning release, but also the free control of water release, giving a lot of versatility to the user. Additionally, the enemy deputy commander is also an experienced shinobi with quite an experience in using the Kekai Genkai, so the power displayed is quite overwhelming, which is restraining for Hizashi. Looking at the faintly exposed caged bird seal on Hizashi's forehead, the enemy commander curled his lips. Unfortunately, you are a member of the branch family of the Hyuga clan. Otherwise, I would have been able to collect a pair of Byakugan this time. Hizashi's expression shrank as soon as he heard this, and he straightened the forehead protector immediately, completely covering the caged bird seal. These words touched the deepest pain in his heart inadvertently. On another part of the battlefield. In the completely liberated state, Nibi's Jinchuriki is almost uncontrollable. The entire battlefield in the region has become a playground for her unscrupulous attacks. At this time, 8 Konoha ninjas shouted together. Earth Release Barrier, Earth Prison Dome of Magnificent Nothingness. With their combined shout, a huge amount of mud rose from all directions and suddenly joined together, trapping the Nibi's Jinchuriki in the liberated state inside a dome of earth. Roar. However, before Konoha ninjas could breathe a sigh of relief, accompanied by a huge roar, Yujito Ni easily broke through the dome of earth and swept the huge claws at Konoha ninjas. 7 ninjas died on the spot, some managed to dodge but not without being injured. Water Style, Water Colliding Wave Technique. Earth Style, Earth Spear Technique. Earth Style, Earth Dragon Technique. How could the remaining of the Konoha ninjas watch their comrades falling one after another? So they immediately released ninjutsu attacks without sparing any chakra. Boom, bang, crack, wish. Countless ninjutsu was fired at the human column force in the tailed beast state, but not a single attack proved too effective in stopping her. While in the tailed beast state, she opened her mouth and shot out a huge flame from it. Instantly, the surrounding forest was burning in the flames of death, and all the Konoha shinobi were plunged into the sea of fire. Cough, cough. There was only one ninja who was still alive in this sea of fire. His condition was not any better than being half dead. While coughing up blood, he could only mutter with deep sadness, "If Yandem-sama and Kyubi's Jinchuriki were still alive, you people." Even before he could finish his words, Yujito Ni crushed him with her claw and snorted coldly, "Unfortunately for you, they are already dead." White Fan committed suicide, Princess Tsunade ran away, Orochimaru defected, Jiraiya left on his journey, Yandem-sama and Kyubi's Jinchuriki died during the Kyubi's rebellion. The impact of all these events has finally broken out in the Land of Fire. In the face of Cloud Village's 2 perfect Jinchuriki, the weakness of Konoha was clearly exposed. On the side of Team 11. After a few days of travel, the 4 shinobi of Team 11 finally arrived at the target location. The Land of Frost and Land of Lightning are adjacent to each other, making it an effective war zone. This is also the reason why Konoha has very detailed information about the geography of this country, allowing Team 11 to pass through without much risk to successfully reach the border of Land of Lightning. Standing at the top of a big tree, Kakashi looked at the valley in the distance and said, "We are here." Kuroto observed the surroundings. A large number of sealing techniques have been arranged around the valley that's blocking Byakugan perception, so I can't tell how many enemy ninjas are there. Cloud Village has many years of experience against Konoha, so they will naturally take effective measures against Byakugan detection. Kakashi wasn't disappointed, and said quietly, "In that case, proceed according to the agreed plan. The 3 of you are responsible for attracting enemy attention and leading away from the guards on the periphery, while I will execute the final attack." Guy tried to say something, but... However, before he could say anything, Kakashi cut him off. "I am the captain, and this is an order, execute it without any question." Shisui also looked at Kakashi, then at Kuroto, hoping for him to do something. Guy also turned his head towards Kuroto. According to their belief, if anyone in Team 11 could persuade Kakashi, it is only Kuroto. Seeing both looking at him expectantly, Kuroto put one hand on the hilt of his sword, tied at his waist, and asked solemnly, "Kakashi, I only have one question, are you sure?" Without any hesitation, Kakashi replied with a determined look, "Of course I am sure. Rest assured, I will meet you all at the retreat point. Time, around midnight. Location, valley where the secret warehouse of Cloud Village is located. Way." A cool breeze blew past, causing the 2 Cloud ninjas in the sentry post to unconsciously tighten their clothes. One of them suddenly asked, "Hey, did you hear something?" Another person listened for a while, then shook his head negatively, "Isn't it just the sound of insects and birds? What else did you hear?" At this moment, a black shadow suddenly rushed into the sentry post and dashed towards the 2 Cloud ninjas. Who? 2 Cloud ninjas didn't even have the opportunity of subconscious defense before they fell under the cold light of the blade. Taking a step forward, the shadow checked the breath and pulse of the 2 of them. After confirming that the two were now dead, he slowly stood up and cast his eyes towards the secret warehouse located at the innermost part of this valley. The shining moonlight fell on the black shadow, revealing his face. This person is not someone else but Hyuga Kuroto, who is responsible for attracting enemy attention and leading them away to generate a suitable opportunity for Kakashi. After sneaking into the valley, Kuroto found that Cloud Village had arranged a very tight defense for guarding against enemy attacks. Even when quite far away from the warehouse, there are already so many ninjas spread around here. From such strict security, Kuroto can guess that Cloud Village must have stocked a lot of supplies here. However, after a moment of careful observation with the Tensigen, he couldn't stay calm anymore. The number of ninjas guarding the warehouse is more than 150, and that's just those in the bright. If those guarding from the shadows are included, then at the very least more than 200 enemy shinobi are present here. This situation is far beyond Kuroto's expectations. Initially, Team 11 expected about 50 to 80 enemy shinobi and planned their tactics accordingly. However, the current situation is obviously not what they expected. Suddenly, there was a noise from the other end. The noise was mixed with shouts and fighting sounds. It made the entire Silent Valley extremely noisy. Kuroto looked in the direction while murmuring, "That should be Guy's direction. Was he discovered so soon?" The battle plan deployed by Team 11 is very simple. Firstly, Kuroto, Shisui, and Guy will infiltrate into the valley from 3 different directions, while assassinating any of the enemy shinobi they encounter along the way. Once they are spotted, they would immediately retreat while leading some guards away, to decrease the enemy number guarding the warehouse. Then, Kakashi, who is responsible for the final assault, will charge straight into the warehouse and destroy it completely. Finally, the 4 members of the Team 11 who completed their part of the task will meet at the retreat point and return together to the Konoha village. However, the premise of this battle plan succeeding is that the enemy number should be around 80 at maximum. With the current enemy count, it's obviously not possible. So, an ominous premonition surged in Kuroto's heart. As Kuroto prepared himself, the noise on that end finally faded away. Since Guy was exposed, then he must have acted according to the plan, leading away a part of Cloud's forces, thought Kuroto. But Guy's exposure also made the Cloud Ninja extremely alert and aware of the enemy attack. As a result of which teams of ninjas spread out and searched the entire valley inch by inch. Seeing that enemy ninjas were about to approach at his location, Kuroto no longer hid and immediately threw several dozen kunai tied with detonation paper in their direction one after another. Boom, boom, boom. There was a series of violent explosions. Under the cover of darkness and the rising smoke from the explosion, Kuroto unsheathed his sword and rushed towards the panicked ninjas. Who is it? Where? Enemy attack, enemy attack. Be careful. It's an enemy attack. The sword light flickered, and like a reaper, Kuroto reaped these ninjas. In the blink of an eye, 4 ninjas were already dead. Wind release, breakthrough. However, before he can take any more actions, one of the Chunin leaders reacted immediately and using a wind release ninjutsu cleared away the smoke and dust. Without the cover of smoke, Kuroto's figure appeared in front of the whole crowd of Cloud Shinobi. Another Chunin leader immediately shouted as soon as he saw Kuroto, "It's Konoha Umbu, everyone, be careful." This group of Cloud search forces consists of Chunin and Genin ninja, so along with sending a signal to the base camp deep in the valley, they surrounded Kuroto. According to the plan, Kuroto should retreat right at this moment. However, considering that the number of enemy ninjas is far beyond what they imagined, he had to stay and attract more attention. Otherwise, it would be impossible for Kakashi to get close to the warehouse. In another direction, Shisui also took the initiative to launch the surprise attack. He started with the body flicker technique, and in just a few moments, solved a 4-person squad of Cloud Shinobi, after which he rushed deeper into the valley. Along the way, he didn't entangle with the enemy much but did kill off the individuals he could without letting the enemy discover himself, but as soon as he was about to approach the warehouse, a group of Cloud ninjas with a Jonin as their leader detected him. With the fierce assault of Kuroto and Shisui, the entire valley was noisier. Explosions, roars, wailing and crying for help, one after another, all the sounds mixed together. Kakashi, who was hiding in the dark, was paying attention to all this, but he had to be patient as it wasn't yet time for him to assault. Before long, Kuroto and Shisui chose to withdraw from the valley. However, the enemy ninjas were obviously not kind enough to let the 2 of them get away so easily. So, 2 chasing units followed the 2, to chase and kill them respectively. Guy drew 8 people, Kuroto drew away 16, while Shisui drew away 12 ninjas. Kakashi, while hidden in the dark, silently counted the number of enemies led away by the teammates as he observed the changes in the guarding formation after the attack. Counting the total number, the 3 members of Team 11 killed and led away, there are still more than 100 enemy ninjas here. But Kakashi can't blame them, this is already a very good result. As for the problem of the enemy number being much higher, Kakashi has no fear of it. On the contrary, this increased his determination to destroy the warehouse, because such a strong defense just implies that the supplies stored must be really important for the Cloud Village. Taking a deep breath, he muttered, "It's now." Ox, rabbit, monkey, dragon, rat, bird, ox, snake, dog, tiger, monkey. As Kakashi completed this hand sign printing, suddenly, a sharp and piercing sound reminiscent of many birds chirping echoed throughout the valley. Accompanied by the sound of birds chirping, Kakashi dashed forward into the valley. On Kuroto's side, as he was moving through the trees, the sound of Kakashi's unique jutsu, Chidori, echoed throughout the valley, indicating that Kakashi has launched the final assault. While still jumping from tree to tree, he glanced at the Cloud Ninjas chasing behind him. There were 16 of them divided into 4 squads. Among these 16, there were 2 at least Jonin class from their chakra volume, and 5 were Chunin, while the rest being Genin class. I have to eliminate these people before reaching the retreat point, thought Kuroto. Having made up his mind, he stopped at a clearing, and slowly pulled the Kusanagi sword out of the sheath on his waist. Clouds chasing ninjas immediately spread around, surrounding him. The leader of one of the squads smiled and said while looking at the Kuroto's young figure, "Just a kid, but look at the courage, dared to sneak in here." If you like this content, don't forget to like and subscribe. See you later, bye bye.